This conference will now be recorded.
I thought we were done with that voice, but I guess not. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our first in-person meeting in a long time for the City of Warrenville City Council, March 7, 2022. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Brummel.
Here.
Alderman Ashour.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here.
Alderman Davalos.
Here.
Alderman Goodman.
Here.
Alderman Krischel.
Here.
Alderman Kruckenberg.
Here.
Alderman Lockett.
Here.
Alderman Widener.
Here.
City Clerk Julie Clark here. City Treasurer Ann Behrens, absent. City Attorney Brooke Lenneman.
Here.
City Administrator John Coakley.
Later.
Here.
Thank you. Assistant City Administrator Christina White.
Here.
Police Chief Ray Torano.
Deputy Chief Jeff Jacobson sitting in.
Thank you. Finance Director Kevin Dahlstrand.
Present.
Community and Economic Development Director Ron Menzer.
Here.
Public Works Director Phil Kukler, absent.
John Satter, Superintendent, Utilities.
Thanks, John. And that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. For those of you who are watching from home, if you go to our website and check out the agenda for this evening, the go-to meeting information is there, so you could watch us or catch us up on the phone. This is the time we set aside for the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As part of our budget process every year, we have a presentation from all the departments to give us an idea of what they've accomplished in this past year, what they anticipate for the coming year. This evening, we're pleased to welcome our police department and our finance department to make their presentations. We have Deputy Chief Jeff here this evening. Good evening, Jeff.
Here we go.
Jacobson. Sorry. I know him as Jeff.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Alderman. Tonight I'm going to give a brief synopsis of, hopefully brief, synopsis of some of our accomplishments from 2021.
Excuse me, Jeff. You have to get a little closer to the mic.
There we go.
Thank you.
Talk about a decision package for the upcoming budget, as well as some goals for this coming year.
Okay, I'm thinking maybe the mic's not on. April, are we having problems?
Yeah.
Get real close.
Okay. How's this?
That's better.
Okay. First time, and we have some technical issues, but we'll get past them. So first thing I want to talk about are some personnel updates that we had throughout the year. Officer Colin Pickens was hired in January of 21. He came to us as a certified officer from the River Forest Police Department. Officers Emily Bell, Mike Law, they completed their field training program and went on solo patrol in August of last year. And we hired 2 new crossing guards, Nancy Vosberg and Jeremy Brown, who were hired in September of last year. In January of this year, January 22, Officer Brian Filer with 21 years of service and CSO Diane Gansberg with 23 years of service retired from the Warrenville Police Department. Last year in October, Christina Smicker resigned from the Warrenville Police Department. And Officer Nate Macejack returned from military leave after a 13-month deployment in May of 2021. Records Assistant Leslie Turner was named Records Supervisor in December of 21. This was after the council made the creation of the Records Supervisor position, a much-needed position, so thank you. Some of the other vacancies that we had and restored them throughout the year. The investigations pop unit was restored in April with officers Ryan Newtoff and Jacob Seaman. That unit had been vacant since October of 2019. The patrol division traffic safety and enforcement unit was restored in July of last year with officers Dan Burrell and Ronnie Zawacki. That unit had been vacant since February of 2020. Currently, we're alternating between the two of them to still fill vacancies in the patrol division. So officers Burrell and Zawacki are alternating back and forth to do that for us. The following personnel were selections on DuPage merit, some of the different teams. Sergeant Josh Wittenberg, Detective Sergeant Jeff Downey were selected to the crisis negotiation team as negotiators. Jacob Seaman was selected to the SWAT team. Officer Cassandra Parola was named team leader of one of the forensic investigation unit teams. And Carlo Romero was selected to the major crimes unit. Some of the community-based events that we've been doing and continue to do. The Polar Plunge and the rebranded Coffee for Champions, which used to be the cop on a rooftop, raised $10,957 last year for the Illinois Special Olympics. This was a huge amount and a great job by our personnel. An award was received based on this. This year's Polar Plunge is scheduled for next Saturday, March 12th in City Hall parking lot after the budget workshop. So feel free to watch some of our people jump in the cold water. The No Shave November, Double Down December event raised $1,780 for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Another great event and good money raised for a good cause. In December, officers Newtoff and Seaman, Jacob Seaman participated with Shop with a Cop. We again participated in the U.S. Marine Corps Toys for Tots program. Our CSO pickup truck was filled to capacity with donated toys. Again, just another great event of giving. Some of the educational opportunities within the community. We resumed our neighborhood roll calls after being canceled due to COVID. National Night Out Against Crime was brought back in August of last year. There's 50 vendors, approximately 600 attendees. Another successful event. I want to give credit to ACO Josh Perry. He has been instrumental in making this a great event year after year. He does a really good job for us. We received another award for the National Night Out from the National Night Out Association for last year's event. The Bauer Walk and Bike to School was another success. Large school participation with Mayor Brummel. Some of our members of the bike unit and crossing guard Pam Lowe participated in that. We had 2 document shredding and recycling events, one in May and one in September of last year. Over 9,000 gallons of documents were shredded. 2 truckloads of electronics were recycled, just a large amount. Unfortunately, we're going to cut back to one event this year, which will be held May 7th, Saturday, May 7th. With our second event last year, there just wasn't a great turnout. So we're gonna cut back to one and hopefully make that one a great one. The annual fireworks detail consisted of 182 hours of dedicated overtime to the education and enforcement of fireworks. Confiscated fireworks filled a 20-gallon garbage can, which were ultimately destroyed by the DuPage County Sheriff's Office bomb squad. 14 tickets were issued during the enforcement phase of that detail. The prescription drug recycling program continues to be a huge success. Over 500 pounds of medication were destroyed last year 505 pounds were collected and destroyed. Just a huge, huge success for that program. Dog licensing and bike registration. We had 9 events that we held throughout the city last year between September and October. We are going to put out a calendar in approximately a month to get spring dates incorporated and hopefully get a better community presentation at those events. The We Live Alone program continued with our records and CSOs making 284 phone calls last year. This was during the extreme cold, snow, big snow events, the extreme heat and humidity. We had 45 participants that take advantage of that program, and 5 more were added last year. Kind of the inner workings, what's actually going on inside the PD. In April, the approval was made by the council for the purchase of cameras, body cameras and accessories. We took a long period of time to draft a policy in order to get it done right and get it done right the first time. Once that policy was constructed, we rolled out the cameras in September of last year. Everything has been a great success up to this point with the cameras. All of our personnel have no problems wearing them, using them. They are great evidence with crimes, with different interactions, and they've actually been used in a few minor complaints to exonerate some of our officers while they're wearing them. We have an in-house detective training program that we created and put in the police department's work plan. It's an 8-week training program for interested patrol officers. Our plan is to get them up and running once we're at full staff. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to use the program yet, but the main idea behind it is for officers that are interested or possibly interested in being a detective to work with them for a while and see the inner workings of the investigations division and how they put cases together. In October, we completed the annual evidence room audit. We do that every year, which ensures the integrity of the storage process and procedures. 100% of the guns, drugs, and money, and a 10% sampling of all the other evidence were checked, and no discrepancies were found. That's a huge, I believe it says something huge about our people and the importance of taking care of evidence, which is everything when it comes to a criminal case. The Traffic Safety Enforcement Unit was, like I said, was brought back in July of last year. They conducted 4 different special details, August through November, which consisted of special enforcement of electronic devices, speed enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, and illegal tinted windows. These details combined were 160 hours spent, 83 traffic citations issued, 11 custodial arrests, 2 city ordinance tickets, and 7 written warnings. In March of last year, we had a major burglary occur at Ultimo Motors. 15 vehicles were stolen during that burglary. 8 of those vehicles have been recovered and returned to the dealership. Unfortunately, a 9th vehicle was used in the commission of a homicide in Chicago. During that case, we have charged 1 juvenile, 2 counts each of burglary, aggravated possession of stolen motor vehicle, and 1 count of theft over $500,000 under $1 million. In talking with our investigation sergeant, Jeff Downey, today, that investigation remains open and ongoing, and he informed me that there should be more charges, or more charges are expected in the near future on not just 1, but possibly a few other suspects. So they've done a great job on staying with that offense. being that we're almost a year into it. DuPage Merit Assists. Our officers responded to 34 callouts in 2021. Our department had 4 activations ourselves, in which we requested 2 canine responses for missing people, and we used the accident reconstruction team twice for an unfortunate fatal accident, vehicle versus pedestrian on Route 59, and a non-fatal single vehicle crash on Winfield Road last year. Expungements. Our records division remains on track, completing the state mandated juvenile and cannabis expungements. This is phase 2 of the expungement law that went into effect, and they are on track to complete this by the end of the year. Training that we've been involved in within the PD and within the community. Corporal Steve Hyland and Officer Alex Snap are certified ALICE instructors. ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. That's the process that the schools use when there's a major incident, active shooter type of situation. And like I said, they are certified instructors, and they complete the lockdown drills with the schools, which are mandated by the state every year. All of those were a success this year, and it also gives them an opportunity to discuss strengths, weaknesses with the staff of their procedures and situational awareness when those things are happening. All of our personnel at the police department participated in active shooter and rapid deployment training in November of last year. This was held at Johnson Elementary School and Hubble Middle School. Officers training focused on team tactics, live scenarios, included coordinated responses to high-risk arrests, medical emergencies, and mass casualty criminal incidents. In December of this year, of 21, EMA coordinator Mike Spain conducted citywide staff training with a tabletop disaster drill exercise, which was another great success. Mike did a great job for us, and the city staff that were involved did a great job as well. Being involved, asking questions, and starting to understand what their role in a situation like that is. We have another tabletop exercise to be performed later this year, most likely in December again. And this training will culminate with a full-scale exercise in 2023. Principal Lori Deischetter of Little Friends put on a presentation for our officers and fire department personnel. Strategies for dealing with special needs individuals in crisis, de-escalation techniques, and school protocols for placing 911 calls were discussed. Different things happening actually in the PD. The HVAC system was completed in May of last year, and the PD did not have to close, which was a good thing. Parking lot fence security system screening was put in place and completed in May. This provides another outer layer of visual obscurity to the back parking lot where our personnel park their own vehicles and our squad cars. Over the past couple of years, especially during some of these civil unrest incidents, we had people driving in the back on the side streets and in the back frontage, taking pictures of our cars, license plates, and those types of things. So the screen that was put in place is a huge benefit for us. PPE supply. We received a large quantity of PPE through the DuPage County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. This was at no cost to the PD or the city, and was in addition to the PPE supply that we already had and that we purchased last year. Consisted of Tyvek suits, gowns, face shields, surgical masks, safety glasses, and goggles. We also continued in 2021 with our monthly squad car sanitation. This was done as a preventative measure to help reduce the spread of COVID. to our own people as well as anybody that we were transporting. Different speaking engagements. Chief Toronto spoke to the DuPage County Board regarding House Bill 3653. He spoke as the president of the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association, addressing some issues with that bill. Chief Toronto and Community Development spoke virtually with Warrenville Hotel Management regarding different shooting incidents that occurred at Airbnbs throughout DuPage County. The idea behind that was to address prevention, internal safety planning, and what the police response is to incidents like that. Chief Toronto also participated at Northwestern University Center for Public Safety on an executive panel. This was at the School for Police Staff and Command class. In 2021, Warrenville received the rank of 47 out of 265 safe communities. Again, to highlight the low crime rate. The recruitment process for us seems to be ongoing, but we have made a conditional offer through the Police and Fire Commission, and a conditional offer was extended to an individual on our current eligibility list back in February. He is just finishing up the psychological and medical portion of the process. We held a new police officer eligibility exam on February 26th. And that was pretty much the events of 2021. Wrapped it up. I'm going to go into our decision package for the upcoming budget. The 5 W's. First W is the who, which is the flock camera system. The second W is the what. Flock camera, they have a license plate recognition system. It's a standalone camera which takes still photos of vehicles. It's not video, it's still photos. The photos are time-stamped. The system also does vehicle frequency. Wanted, missing subjects are associated with vehicles, and an alert has been put into the computer database via leads. Then we are alerted with those wanted or missing subjects, as well as stolen vehicle alerts. The system does not capture personal information. I know that's a concern of different groups with some of these camera systems. It only takes a picture of the car, then we get that information, and we are the only ones that have access through Secretary of State to the driver's license info and the license plate information. The cameras are motion activated 24/7. They're mounted to existing structures on the parkway or their own standalone pole, and they are solar powered. The cameras, if a vehicle passes by a camera and there's an alert on that vehicle, that alert then will go out to our on-duty personnel via the MDT, their in-car computers. Almost instantaneous. It goes through, the camera views it, recognizes the plate, runs the plate, there's an alert on it, and it gets pushed out to our squad cars that are on duty. The third W of why this is important to us, or why we feel it's important. We feel it's another great investigative tool to assist our officers, our detectives, to generate investigative leads. It's also very helpful in locating missing, endangered, and wanted persons associated with vehicles, and alerts associated with criminal activity. It helps us solve crimes and deters criminal activity. Main goal of having a system like this is to protect the city of Warrenville and to keep the citizens of Warrenville as safe as can be. The where, the fourth W. In our decision package, we're going to be requesting 9 cameras with an advanced search feature. These would be installed at main city ingress and egress routes, main thoroughfares in and out of the city. The exact locations would be determined at a later date. Part of that would be based on the placement of some of our neighboring jurisdictions. If they have cameras in certain places, then there might not be any need for us to put a camera in a certain place. So we would work with our neighbors and as well as Flock to find out the best places to put the cameras. Currently, 14 DuPage County agencies are have contracts or are using Flock cameras. DuPage County Sheriff's Office is one of them. They are in contract and they anticipate putting 30 cameras up throughout DuPage County. Naperville also is in contract with Flock and anticipates 29 cameras. Hinsdale 16 cameras. And there's 5 more agencies, jurisdictions that are expected to sign contracts with Flock in the near future. One of them being Downers Grove, who plans on putting 18 cameras up. The fifth W. After signing a contract with Flock, the estimated time to put the cameras up would be about 2 to 3 months. This is because they obtain the permits through IDOT and County Highway Department to put up the cameras. Like I said, the personal information is not obtained through a still photo. That's not a worry. The photos are stored in the cloud, and the company Flock, they cannot access Secretary of State. Photos are kept for 30 days unless they are flagged by us, by the police department. And we then in turn can provide them to other police departments and vice versa. Flock owns the equipment and they would be responsible for the upkeep, the maintenance. However, we would own the associated data collected, the photos that are collected. Kind of the nitty-gritty, the financial part of it. The initial purchase would consist of $27,250. The annual cost per camera is $2,500, which is for the rent of the equipment and the maintenance of the equipment. A one-time per camera setup fee is $250. The advanced search feature is an annual cost of $2,500, which would mean an annual ongoing cost of $25,000. So to give an example of, I mentioned the advanced search feature a couple of times. Give you an example of what that means is, let's say your car is outside in front of your house, a burglary occurs, you discover it the next morning. That's it. You don't have any other info for us. But you know when you parked it and you know when you discovered the burglary. So now we have a time frame. Now we find out one of your neighbors has a Ring doorbell. We go to them, we get the footage, and we see a white panel van with a ladder rack and a window sticker on the back window drives by during that time frame. So now the advanced feature that Flock has that none of the other vendors of license plate recognition cameras have on the market is we can search their system, search every camera that we have. We can search West Chicago's cameras, Naperville's cameras, based on an MOU for a white van with a ladder rack with a back window sticker. It's based on color. They're able to search on color, make and model of a vehicle, which is a huge asset to investigation of crimes. So that's what the Flock system is, kind of in a nutshell. And when I get done with the goals, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Just going to touch real quick on a couple of goals for the upcoming year. As I mentioned, we held the eligibility exam on February 26th. There were 40 eligible candidates to take the test. Unfortunately, we only had 29 show up. Of those 29, 25 passed, and so that is going to be our current list. They have 10 days up until March 11th at 5 p.m. to request military preference points. Then the final list will be approved by the Board of Fire and Police Commission March 23rd, and that list will be good for 2 years. As I stated, we have a conditional offer of employment out to one individual. As long as everything goes okay with his testing, he would attend the power test on March 15th with an academy that runs March 28th through July 1st. That would fill one of 2 officer vacancies that we have, and we have one CSO vacancy where we've collected quite a few applications at this point, and we're going to be doing interviews in the next couple of weeks. We are still waiting on one of our vehicles that we ordered from last year, Hybrid Explorer. Both vehicles, we ordered one of each, gas and one hybrid. The gas was delivered to our vendor, our install vendor, in December of 21. However, they are having difficulty getting other supplies for the car, so it's still waiting to be outfitted and set up for us. The hybrid vehicle, which was also ordered in June of last year, we were told that it would be in production sometime after January 1st of this year. What after January 1st means, I don't know. It could be May, it could be June. We really have no idea. So we're still waiting on that. In the upcoming budget, we have a request for a new web-based ticket writing software. This will be the same system that DuPage County and the clerk's office has that they just went into contract with the company. Individual employee photos for the police department is also a goal of ours to do this year. We haven't done anything like that since 2014, and it's a great way to maintain the history of the police department. We have purchased ballistic helmets for all of our sworn personnel. This is another one of those things based on everything going on in the world. We were just informed that the delivery is going to be delayed because all those resources are being sent overseas. But those helmets were purchased through a safety grant and no additional cost. Also in the budget, the upcoming budget, we're going to be requesting 4 more solar digital speed signs to put throughout the city. We're going to continue to serve with community events, positive interactions with the public, and applying the 10 shared principles of policing. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Thank you, Jeff. Great work as always. We have so many things to be proud of our department. You folks do a great job.
Thank you, Mayor.
Could you take just a moment to talk about merit? I think it's really important for people to understand what merit is and how we benefit and how we help other communities through that operation.
Absolutely. So merit is a multi-jurisdictional task force throughout DuPage County. I believe there's over 300 members within the organization, and it covers all the gamut of specialties. Accident reconstruction, evidence technicians, major crimes investigators, K-9, SWAT team, digital forensics, that when it comes to a major incident that many departments can't handle on their own, now we have a resource, and one phone call is made to get those personnel, and it's a great organization. I don't have the exact numbers. I know Chief Toronto spoke about it recently. There was a fundraiser done last fall. A little more than $2 million of private funds were donated, and some huge equipment for merit. The SWAT team is going to be purchased and put into place this year. A couple of armored vehicles and a command post. Again, like I said, it's one of those things where you cannot overemphasize the role that an organization like that plays, especially with communities our size, where we don't have the personnel to go 24/7 on investigations, and that's what it takes a lot. And so there's personnel that are coming to help us out, and that's a huge asset.
So we have that resource available to us, as do the other communities in DuPage County. Not only do we have
Absolutely.
that resource, but we have officers trained and they participate to provide that expertise.
Yes,
I would just add that my understanding is this is the first in the nation of this type of an organization, and it's very innovative, and probably you're gonna have folks knocking on your door to say, how did you set this up, and how did you get it going?
that's the way I understand it too. It's already being modeled throughout the country. And a lot of people are calling the uppers involved with merit, looking for the information to copy it, which it's a great opportunity for them.
And in terms of kudos for the city of Warrenville, Chief Toronto was one of the people that put this together and was the first head of merit.
He was
first
the
year.
chairman, the initial chairman, and was involved in the very first steps to get it organized and put together.
Warrenville leads again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions or comments for Jeff? Alderman Goodman?
Yes, Deputy Chief Jacobson, first I just want to say thank you so much for all your hard work and for this wonderful presentation. I think we're all very proud of our police department and the work you do in the community. I mean, the charitable efforts alone must take so much time and resources, and it's really wonderful to see. I did have one question about something you mentioned toward the end, a decision package
Sure.
about the 4 more solar digital speed signs. Can you talk a little bit about the speed signs that we already have and how they're being used and how useful they are?
So they have the ability to capture. Obviously, they register speed, and we have the ability to set the speed limits within the system per sign. And so what that does is we can set the limits of 1 mile over or 5 miles over, where it'll start flashing your speed to you. And then we also have the red and blue lights that alternate. Hopefully you guys haven't seen those. That means you're going a little too fast. And so we can adjust those levels as well. With in the data portion of it, then we can collect data of number of vehicles and speeding vehicles. And then based on that, then we can provide extra enforcement in that area. Also, it's just a huge visual deterrent for people, for drivers, for motorists.
Okay, so the main use is so that you can tell where the problems are in town and you can decide if you need extra enforcement in those areas. Have you
Correct.
been moving them around the town at all? Because it doesn't seem like it.
These, for the most part, are stationary ones. And then we do have 2 mobile speed trailer ones that we do move around to different areas.
Okay, have they been reliable? I feel like about half the time the one I pass on Batavia Road is off.
As far as I know, they've been fine. There was one on Batavia Road, west of Williams, that was down for a period of time. Had to get sent in for work, just like any other electronic. It'll go down, and as far as I know, everything's back up and running.
Okay, so the solar-powered ones, they're just on when there's sun, or when there isn't much sun, you don't see them?
So the solar powered, they have a built-in battery system that charges through there, and we haven't had any issues as far as power.
Okay.
But the only issue that we have seen was an faulty issue with the internal mechanism.
Okay.
I don't exactly know what it was. We sent it out to be repaired.
Okay, that's great that we're using green technology and that it's been reliable. That's really good to hear. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alderman. Anyone else? Alderman Davalos.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Chief Jacobson. This is always a very informative presentation every year for me, and I learn a lot, and I did again this year. So I thank you for your effort in pulling this all together.
Thank you.
Also, you did a really nice job of explaining the decision packages. that we will be looking at Saturday. So I appreciate that because I think you gave me more information than I probably would have asked about or not even known to ask about, but will use in decision-making. So I appreciate that very much. And,
You're welcome.
and just continued kudos to the department. I just think our police department has such a huge role in the safety of the community and the quality of the community. You do so many things with children, which I just love, and lots of other things. So I just give you all the praise I can, and thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Weidner.
Thanks for the excellent presentation, Deputy Chief Jacobson. I have a couple questions. One is about the status of vacancies, and as a result of those vacancies, has our overtime budget been strained?
I don't know the exact numbers, but undoubtedly it has increased. Not only because of the vacancies, but we went through a period of time last year with COVID. Honestly, we were very fortunate through the COVID, through the pandemic. Most of the time how should I say this? We only had 1 or 2 officers out at a time with COVID. We did go through a period where we had 6 officers out at one time, which generated quite a bit of overtime to backfill onto the street. But yes, with the shortages, it has resulted in some overtime, but we have also supplemented with the traffic unit and at different times throughout the past couple of years with the POP unit too. So we've taken and moved when we can to cut down on that.
It's my understanding that law enforcement has been affected by COVID probably more than any other profession that people speak of, and I guess kudos to that for keeping things going and being able to make the adjustments necessary, plus dealing with, everybody you pick up and everything like that, having to have a concern about that above and beyond all the other enforcement concerns that you have when you're dealing with the public. So thank you for that. With regards to your decision packet, if you don't know where you're going to put the 9 cameras, how do you know that you need 9? Is there a basis for that?
That's what we anticipate based on different spots, ingress, egress routes within the city. But that could change. Honestly, that could change based on some of the, like I said, some of the locations that Naperville may be using. We don't exactly know where near the 59 and 88 area where they're going to be putting cameras, or West Chicago, and as well as DuPage County. So that number, if anything, I would assume would drop, would go down.
Do you think that the equipment will be readily available in light of the fact that we're having trouble getting the hybrid vehicle and the ballistic helmets and so forth?
This is one area where I've not heard of any shortages, is with Flock. I know other camera systems, actually the camera system for our in-car squads camera system is way behind, way delayed. I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately, if it would be delayed or not.
Just curious. One of my other comments, the police do such an excellent job entwining themselves in the fabric of the community and everything. I just wonder whether they feel like they have avenues of communications open to them if they have suggestions for improvement, things that might improve pedestrian safety, enforcement of, just general security provisions that they might recognize while they're out on patrol and doing their work. Do they have a program where they can bring those ideas forward for action?
You mean our personnel, our officers, detectives, bringing things forward?
Yeah.
Yes, we have a very open communication process. It's not a formal process, which I think works well for us, and that they bring their ideas to their sergeants and ultimately up to command staff and we have discussions about it all the time. I meet monthly with our sergeants, and most of the time that's where those discussions happen. Different ideas, different suggestions that they have, that their officers bring to them, or they come up to my office and, or I go to their office. It's an informal process, but there is an avenue for them to bring them forward.
And likewise, if those suggestions end up affecting another department within the city, Public Works, Community Development, are there avenues there to forward those suggestions to the other departments, and is that done?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We have constant communication with Public Works. Phil Kukler and I talk quite a bit. Jamie Clark, different traffic signs, different complaints within the city that people have, and we discuss and work them together.
Great. Well, I thank you. Not only do I recognize the police as being a great enforcement arm of the city, you know, helping with the difference in the fireworks on the 4th of July and just the protection that is provided by the department and the high rank that we have as a safe community is a credit to your department, but also all these other, you know, causes that you get involved in, you know, the community policing, the roll calls, and your participation at the bike rodeo, and doing National Night Out and everything like that is something that I don't see in other communities, and hats off for being so involved with the community and working in being involved with the other good things. I hope that brings the police department some pride and
Absolutely.
makes their job less difficult, because I think it's a very extremely difficult job in this day and age to be involved with, and I appreciate your department and all the officers very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add an addendum that I believe Alderman Widener speaks for all of us up here. We highly value your people. Make sure they hear that.
Absolutely.
Alderman
Thank you.
Ashauer?
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I just have a question about the cameras and how they relate to the other communities. Obviously, it sounds like there's going to be either some overlap or some areas where they're in close proximity. Does the information get forwarded to the other police department? Or, I mean, it would seem to me that it should let them know they're coming. You know, if you pick up somebody that's a problem, or a car that's a problem, a plate that is a concern, is Naperville notified if it's going down 59 or you know, any of the other departments?
So the way the system works is if, which we have already had entered into agreements with other agencies throughout Illinois that have the system, have the cameras. So we can access their cameras and do the searches. So once we get up and going, if it's approved, we would give access to other police departments as well. So the vehicle traveling Route 59, for example, goes to hits a Warrenville camera. We get alerted, goes to Naperville, and so on. So they would get alerted as well. I'm not sure if
That's what I was looking for.
Okay,
So,
yes.
So the alert goes to the next most likely camera or department.
Once it passes through a camera, yes, it goes to that host agency. So we would be able to search Naperville's for vehicles that pass through their cameras, but not a preemptive. It won't preemptively send a vehicle traveling southbound 59 to notify Naperville. That it will not do.
Okay.
If
So
that's
They'd
what
have to
you're
wait to
asking.
get their own alert.
Correct.
It
Yes.
seems like it's kind of wasteful of the technology.
I wish I could develop it.
But you
I
my
understand
question,
exactly what you're saying.
that
Yes.
it's not
yes.
interactive with the other communities.
But the and your question about the if there was any overlapping as far as if that's what you were asking, where the cameras are being placed. The DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association is working, has a committee working right now to map out these cameras. We have that, but it's nothing that I wanted to present in public. But we have that map, and it's that's where. When I say that we're not sure exactly where Naperville's going to put theirs, they don't have them yet. So if they put them in a location that we were going to, close on the other side of an intersection, then we don't have to, and which would ultimately save us, some funds.
Thank you.
And they wouldn't be stacked on top of each other.
One would expect as these things mature too, the technology matures, there are going to be improvements as we move along. And as more people come on board to join the system, there'll be questions like that and suggestions for changes that'll upgrade the system as we move along. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Mayor. And that's how their advanced search feature happened. Different agencies that they started out with wanted to know if they could get a bigger picture. Most of the vendors now that have license plate recognition cameras strictly focus on the license plate, and that is all you get. And so when Flock came into business and they started working with police departments, they learned that a shot of the rear of the vehicle would be beneficial in being able to establish what the make and model of the vehicle is, and the color. And it also takes a side shot of the vehicle passing by, so that's when you can tell if it's a sedan, pickup truck, van, and they developed the advanced search for the window stickers, ladder rack, those types of things. So yes, it is constantly changing and being updated based on suggestions and input from law enforcement agencies.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from anyone else? Again, Deputy Chief, great presentation. Thank you so much. Thanks for the good work, and please, again, pass that along to your fellow officers that we're so proud of what you do and you have our support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Finance. Kevin, another interesting year for your department. I see a little bit of a smile. You must be thinking about next year that's going to be easier, right? It can only be easier. All right, our Finance Director, Kevin Dahlstrom, is going to make the presentation for our Finance Department. Good evening, Kevin. Good to see you again.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much. Mine should be a lot briefer than everyone else's. I don't have any cool buildings I get to show you guys. I don't have any neat new roads or bridges or anything exciting like that. So we'll keep this a little brief. 2022 has been a year of challenges for us, and as you're aware, we've been fighting the ongoing ERP battle. We did, for the whole fiscal 2022, at least up until January, operate dual systems. We were doing payroll in both the outgoing MSI system as well as the new D365 system. So we were doing twice the work that we would normally have to do. One of the fights we've been having, and we continue to fight, is on leave management. The balances, they have not been able to get to work correctly, and what that is the reporting of vacation time and sick time and that kind of thing. They've actually been unable to accomplish that correctly. I spent many weeks and hours working with my department to analyze the data that they had in place. We think we finally have identified the areas that they need to fix. They've been working on those fixes, and they are expected to be out within the next week. That hopefully will finally resolve that whole issue, because in all honesty, we're tired of looking at it and tired of having to try to resolve it. We spent, like I said, we spent a lot of time, and that meant going through individual by individual to make sure our numbers stayed intact. And we tracked that all manually on the site as well, so that we actually knew that what we had was correct. So we moved on from that. Accounts payable had been going along extremely well. And then within the last month, we've had a snag in that it won't produce a check correctly. So we've actually had to go back to them, work with them to identify what that issue is, and that correction is due out to us within the next week as well. We're not quite sure why that stopped, because we had been using accounts payable since November of 2019 live, and then within the last 2 months or so, it started to perform inaccurately in that when we went to print the check, it wouldn't print the actual description that we were expecting it to print. We did, so we were issuing a refund check to whoever for a permit, but it would say that we were buying clothes. It just didn't make any sense. So just odd descriptions that really didn't mean anything. And it was only wrong when we went to print the actual check. Everything up to that point was right. So they're trying to resolve that. So that was just an ongoing thing now that's been going on the last 2 months. COVID-19, as you're aware, was a huge challenge for all of us. And it made us in finance have to rethink a little bit how we report things. Working with John, he wanted me to report things more on a cash basis, so a little easier to track. That's not a way a finance department operates. We don't do things on a cash basis. So it took us a little while to sort of reset our way of thinking and to be able to report that. And I think you've seen in the reports that we've been presenting that I think we accomplished that fairly well. And we have spent an awful lot of time analyzing what the effects on revenues have been, and particularly the ones that would be more affected by COVID, such as sales tax and those kinds of things. Building permits, that kind of thing went on anyway, so we didn't have to spend a lot of time analyzing that, but we did have to do some in there as well. We went through an employee change mid-year. We had been rolling along, had a new employee. That employee had an opportunity to go elsewhere and decided to leave us. That left us with a 4-month hole in that position. We did get some temporary help, but it did require a lot of my time because I'm the only one in the department who was able to use both systems. So it took time to work with our part-time help and to make sure we kept that in check. We did a pretty good job, but it was a lot of extra work. The audit process is going to be remote again for part of this year, and it was remote at the end of last year. It's a lot harder to do an audit remotely. It's a lot easier when you can walk over to the auditor and hand them what they need instead of having to copy it, scan it in, email it off to them, wait for the response. So that was a big challenge. It did work fairly well, but it's not as easy as it is when they're here in person. Some of our successes for the year was that we did actually receive our 28th Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for our 2020 audit, and we did submit the 2021 audit for consideration as well. And they're a little behind in publishing the results for that, but we should be hearing about that soon, and we have every reason to anticipate that we'll qualify for that as well.
Stop for just a minute, Kevin, and
Absolutely.
explain the significance of that. I think that's pretty significant that for all those years running, you have done something to the highest level that's expected. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. That's the highest award you can get from the Government Finance Officers Association for Financial Reporting, and that means that we're doing it correctly, and we're reporting it the way everybody would expect to see it. So it's the highest award you can get for financial reporting from the GFOA.
Excellent. Well done.
So an ERP success, which I like to report because they seem like there haven't been a lot of those, is we did finally go live with payroll in February of 2021. We actually completed our first year under that system, and beginning January of this year, we are now doing payroll only in the new system. We're not doing dual anymore. There are still a few challenges to that, but at some point you just have to stop and move on. Those challenges has not been as huge as we thought they would be. I did mention the ongoing issue with the leave management, and there were some issues, and they sort of hang around a little bit with pension reporting, in that we've been having some hard time getting the ADP part of the software to report the pension withholdings correctly, but we do now believe we have that worked out. So that took some time from us as well. Budgeting. The budget that went out to you about 2 weeks ago, we did use the new ERP budgeting module for that to produce all the detailed pages in there. A small green thing that came out of that is we were able to save 3 reams of paper in the production of this year's budget because of the way the reports now print. Now, it's not a huge thing, but 3 reams is 3 reams, and it saves something. The budget, through a lot of hard work in the finance department, it was distributed on time. And we were pretty excited about getting that out on time because it didn't look like we were going to make it at all.
Again, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that people probably don't understand the significance of the Enterprise Resource Planning ERP system, and you've reported significant problems along the way. Could you just briefly explain why we're doing that and what the benefits are going to be when we finally get it to work?
Absolutely. So an ERP system is an enterprise resource planning system. And what that allows us to do is have a system that communicates with all departments, as opposed to the current standalone things we use now. For example, our accounts payable and GL speak to each other, but they don't speak to some things in other departments as well, like Public Works. We do not have the ability to track like work order reports and keep track of those types of things. It'll allow that to all flow through one system and allow us all to have access to that same information. And it would allow us also, another example would be, we can tie the utility bill at a house to know what permits have also been issued at that house and how that all relates. So everything will speak to each other when this is all said and
So
done.
efficiency and communication will be enhanced dramatically.
Absolutely.
Instead of all these disparate systems, we'll have one system that can communicate, and it will increase our efficiency.
Correct. Another example of that is we have been using paper timesheets for payroll for any number of years. All of that now is electronic. So instead of each department having to submit all of those by paper, they submit that all electronically, and it's saving a lot of time in our processing. And so we're not keying in any data. It's all done for us ahead of time.
Great, thank you so much.
Some of the goals for this next year is finally to complete the ERP, to have the GL live at the beginning of May. We have some staff training to do so that everybody is in our purchasing module is allowed to do that. The utility billing, which was not part of the original scope, is still being worked on. It is a significant challenge for them to build this from scratch. And myself and Tina Gasparis, our billing clerk, have spent a lot of time with them, making sure that they understand how this is supposed to work, how it's supposed to calculate, and what the output ought to be. And they're not all the way there yet, but they're getting awful close. Related to that would be the cashiering module. Ultimately, what will happen is that will be the new point where we'll tie in all of the things that we collect money on into one place. For example, the building permits will all tie into our cashiering module. We won't have to enter any of that by hand anymore. So that's the type of thing that once all of that is live, it'll finish tying everything together. We need to complete the borrowing that we're going to be doing out in Tier 4 to build the new infrastructure we need to build out there as far as the tanks and wells. That'll be coming up during this year. One of the exciting things is that there's going to be some payback from the TIFs to the general fund for both fiscal 2022 and 2023. While those aren't specifically finance things, I like to report those because I think it takes a lot of work to make sure we keep everybody in line and we actually get there and report this all correctly. So I'm very excited about the fact that we're able to do that and a little bit ahead of where we thought it would be.
And we're seeing benefits for those TIF investments that the community made earlier. That we said
Absolutely.
there will be benefits down the line, those are starting to materialize.
Absolutely correct.
Great. Thank you.
A few more things is that we're going to have the continued challenge of the revenue recovery from COVID. The majority of our revenues are doing actually fairly well, which we'll discuss on Saturday. There are still a few areas that are struggling their way back, particularly in the area of the amusement tax is one we know that was hit particularly hard. And while the hotels were hit pretty hard during COVID as well, it's making a nice comeback. It's not all the way back, but that revenue stream is doing pretty well and a little better than we expected. One of the things we will have to address will be the impact of inflation on our budget. It's kind of happening now, and as we know, everything is going up and up in price. There's no way that we're able to build that into our proposed budget because there's just no way right now to reflect exactly what that will be. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as we go forward. And finally, one of the things that I'd like to do, as you're aware, we've been using a modeling software for work on our EMRP. I showed you once or twice how it's the ability to graph and sort of show how the fund looks. I am working to do that same thing with the general fund. That's considerably more work, and we've already got that well underway, but we'll be able to use that to help us project into the future for the general fund as well as soon as we get that up and completed. So that's one of the things I'm pretty excited about being able to do over this next year. It's a thing we had started already and sort of got sidetracked during COVID, and now we hope to return to that and get that up and running so that it's able to be used by the long-range financial planning group, particularly, as well as when we're doing any of our budgeting. So that's not as exciting as everybody else's department, but we had a challenging year, and I wanted to make you aware of everything we've been after, and I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone might have.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. And I think we all appreciate the fact that it has been an extremely challenging year. And you've put in a lot of hours way beyond what normally would be expected. And your whole team has done a terrific job. So we very much appreciate that. And
Thank
are
you.
looking forward to an easier year for you coming up, please. So anyone
Absolutely.
questions or comments for Kevin? Alderman Goodman.
Just a quick comment, just to say thank you. I really mean it. This has been a tough couple of years financially. It's been hard to predict things, and having updated, regular monthly reporting about the COVID revenue situation and just having data to look at to see how things are at any given time has been tremendously helpful, I think, for all of us. I think I can speak for everybody and say thank you for all of that hard work. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Widener.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Director Dahlstrand. I just had a question about the ERP. I'm sure it's been met with or fraught with challenges, and I just wonder, where are we on the budget with that? Are we over budget, or are we exactly where we thought we would be with the expenditure that we allocated for that project?
Well, you'd like an easy answer to that, and I'm not going to provide you an easy answer to that, but I'll provide you what the actual answer is. We have not paid them anything for the implementation in about a year. This contract was based on milestones. Majority of those have not been hit, and they've not been paid. So what we've done so far is budget the remaining amount we owe them on this contract into next year. Because at the rate we're going, as hard as we're trying, I don't think we're quite gonna be done by the end of April. And even if we are, they won't have build us by that point, and they won't have hit those milestones. So we're not over budget, we're not under budget, we're behind on budget through no fault of ours.
But you think 100% of the ERP challenges will be met by the end of this fiscal year, across all departments as far as?
Not by the end of 2022, because I know we're not gonna make it on utility billing. That is really involved. And I said that to them from the beginning. I've been doing utility billing 30 years or so, and I knew they were gonna have the issues they're kind of having, and changes in personnel on their side didn't help that either. So we will not be done by the end of April, but I think we'll be done with the vast majority of the main things in the finance and operations side, pretty close to the end of the year here, I'm hoping.
Okay, and with the other departments, they'll be implementing their parts of the ERP by the end of the year?
There are a
too, you
lot of things already implemented, like, for example, community development is using a lot of the Mays city side of this to do their permitting. They've been doing that now for a number of months. It's worked out extremely well so far. There's still some things they've been working on getting the developers to program to improve what they're doing, but they are already using that. And it'll become a lot more effective once the cashiering module is in place to help us record what they're doing a little easier than having to do that by hand now.
I would imagine that we're probably over budget on the estimated amount of personnel hours you thought at the beginning of this project and what we would spend on ERP, correct? Not
I
that
would
we
say
track
there's
that.
no question that we're way over, considering it was supposed to be an 18-month thing, and we're now up to 4 years.
Are you finding that, like, the programming is changing as you go through the 4 years, that you get caught up in one area and then all of a sudden?
There has been some of that has occurred. Some of that has been at our behest. Hey, you have to change so-and-so to do whatever to actually make it work the way it ought to work. There has been a couple of times, too, where we've experienced a change by Microsoft that has caused an issue on our end, but that's going to be an ongoing thing. Hopefully, Microsoft doesn't change too many things, and there haven't been a lot of them, but there's been one or two of those. And I think the current issue we're having with the accounts payable was caused by that, at least partially.
Okay. And then with you having challenges with inflation now and things like that, how will we address that in the budget? Will we end up revising the budget mid-year, do you think? Or do you think there'll be enough contingencies? I don't know, you gotta probably kind of look into your crystal ball, which you don't care to do and want to deal with reality, but I just wonder with the inflation, that's kind of running away, how we would look at that.
So traditionally, when we've budgeted, we always seem to budget our worst case scenario or our most conservative side on both revenues and expenditures. We tend to be conservative on the revenue side and actually receive more than we expect a lot of times. And on the expenditure side, we tend to overestimate what we as a staff can accomplish. And so I think there's going to be some room in there that's going to allow for us to deal with inflation, because almost annually we don't ever hit the full amount of what we think we're going to expend. So I think there'll be a bit of that that'll play into it. However, we will analyze this as we go and come back to the city council if we see at any point that, hey, this isn't going to work, that we're going to go way over in a particular area. We'll come back and present that to the council and present a recommendation for how to deal with that.
Okay, and just a note of appreciation on you and your department always guiding us through with just sage advice on these challenging financial times that we faced with COVID and everything like that. It's very much appreciated, and your advice and help is always spot on, as well as all the members of your department, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Davalos?
Wow. Yeah, I just, this has been an interesting couple of years. And you would have to be at every city council meeting and all the other meetings to really understand. It's actually the whole staff. I see it all represented here, and John's over here. Everybody needs to be thanked for coming together and working together and being creative together and explaining it to all of us in a way that we can understand and make decisions. And it has been an incredible experience. I mean, and a lot of my fear has lessened because of these presentations and because things were given to us every month, I think, to help us really understand where we're going and how we're going to deal with this. And you called it here revenue recovery challenges. Well, you know, we started when didn't look like a lot of recovery. So I just want to say thank you to all the departments, actually, for how you have all guided us. But the buck stops here with the finance department, I guess, in the end. And somebody's got to produce those numbers and do all that. So I'm just breathing a sigh of relief as we are maybe coming out of the COVID and things are looking better. And I'm looking forward to the meeting on Saturday to take a look at how things have changed. I also just want to say personally thank you to you. I came in as an alderman, not as a mathematician or an accountant. That was not my wheelhouse. I have wheelhouses, but those aren't mine. And so over these years, you have really been so available and so willing to talk and understand and present it at the 101 level and not the 3010 level or whatever. So I just see it in all these presentations. Just there's a lot of good news here. And so I'm just grateful, I guess. I'm just grateful. And I look at that TIF payback and icing on the cake. So thank you very much, and thank you to just everybody who's helped us along.
Mayor, if I can say one last thing off of that, while we do a lot of work in the finance department, I'll go along with what you said. We wouldn't accomplish anything we do if it weren't for the financial abilities of every department to pay attention to what they're doing and to pay attention to doing things the correct way. It wouldn't be easier for us to report it the correct way if they weren't doing it correctly in the beginning. So I thank every department for the support that they give us in what we do, and I'm very glad that I work with some really great people that allows us to do the same things we do and accomplish them as well as we do. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And Alderman Davalos, I think, makes a really good point. We don't have silos here at the city. Every department works with every other department cooperatively, which is somewhat unusual, I think, for a lot of communities, but we're very proud of the fact that our staff works that way and the community benefits. So I second that. We have the best staff around. All right, Kevin, I think you can go home right now if you want.
Oh, I got a few more things to watch here, so thank you very much.
I know you've been late so many times. I
Well,
was
I'm
going to
used
give
to
you a
it now,
break.
so there we go.
All right, we will move on with the business of our meeting after we hear our citizens' comments. We have one person in person tonight, Mr. Bob Siebert. Bob?
Bob Siebert, Albright Court. Have an update on the property at 28301 Ferry Road in Cantera. As you know, the city of Warrenville rezoned 3 3/4 acres of the parking lot to high-density attached row houses. Upon receiving the rezoning, the developer immediately put the vacant property up for sale for about $2.5 million. My research shows the developer paid $4,960,000 for the existing office building and 14 acres on July 20th, 2020. Now, the 136,000 square foot building and 14 acres are up for sale for $24 million. That equates to $176 per square foot. And as inflation rises, this becomes a great economic motivator for potential buyers. This also becomes an economic incentive for the taxing districts. $24 million, $8 million EAV. That would increase the property tax revenue by 6.7 times the current amount. This would add an additional $520,000 per year and increasing by the amount of the tax cap. If the property sold for half, $12 million, this would increase the property tax revenue by more than $210,000 per year. We can see that inflation has two sides to the sword. It can benefit older properties, making them more competitive, and it can increase revenue to taxing districts. Inflation can create many opportunities that can enhance the taxing districts, but you must understand the economics.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have anyone on the phone that would like to make a comment? No emails? Okay, then we'll close this part that we do for citizens' comments and go into official and staff comments. Just again, I would like to say thank you to our wonderful staff and keep up the good work. It's a pleasure to work with all of you. We'll go on to the clerk. Anything this evening?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Treasurer's not here. Alderman, anyone, please raise your hand. I don't have to go through the list for a change. This is so nice. Alderman Goodman.
Thank you. Just a brief comment as an elected official who is sitting here thanks to the results of a free and fair democratic election. I feel responsible for speaking out in support of the democratic system. So I want to say that I stand with the people of Ukraine in support of democracy and peace, and that I'm opposed to wars of conquest and violence, especially against so many innocent civilians. And we should take our time to remember that as elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Anyone else? Okay. City Administrator, John, good evening.
Thank you.
We have
Good.
another meeting coming up, do I understand?
We do. I gotta get my prop out. The budget booklets, as Kevin had pointed out earlier, through tremendous effort, especially this year, were issued put in everybody's boxes last Monday, a week ago, so you all have them or should have them. Our budget workshop, the annual budget workshop for the city council and the staff, is this Saturday morning, starting at 9 a.m. until noon. So there will be some food, so you won't get hungry during the budget presentations for everybody who's participating, and we'll have it right here. So we'll see you on Monday. If there are, Saturday.
Ooh, yeah.
We'll see you next Monday too, but Saturday. If there are questions, any aldermen have questions in advance of the meeting, Kevin and I are available to try to schedule a time to talk to you, either by phone or we could do virtual meetings now, and you can come in and we can meet. We'll also have that opportunity for at least the week after the budget workshop. And as always, each committee, the whole meeting following the budget workshop, will have just a budget discussion on there if there's continued questions or follow-up or something we need to bring back, all the way up to the time when the budget needs to be adopted, the second council meeting in April, so that we can open for business May 1st and legally operate at that point. Have to have a budget adopted before the end of the fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Saturday, 9 a.m., be here. Okay.
This Saturday, yes.
This Saturday, very good. City Attorney, good evening, Brooke.
Good evening, nothing from me.
All right, thank you. We'll move on then to the approval of the agenda for this evening. Alderman Widener, would you like to do that?
Absolutely.
In living color, I'd like to move to approve agenda for the March 7th, 2022 City Council regular meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments and or questions or changes? Seeing none, all in favor? Can we do that?
Aye.
Aye.
A voice vote. Be still my beating heart.
Unusual.
This is delightful. Thank you, Alderman. The motion has been approved and the agenda has been approved. So we have a motion necessary then for only one set of minutes also, Alderman Widener?
I would like to defer on this since I was not in attendance at that
Okay.
meeting. It would be more appropriate for somebody else to make the motion.
Okay, who'd like to pick up the slack there? Alderman Davalos.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2022 City Council regular meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. And again, any comments and or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The consent agenda for this evening, item 7A, accept Mayor Brummel's recommendation and approve the appointment of Christine Avila to fill the unexpired term of Chairman of the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Awareness Commission, expiring April 30th, 2022. B, receive and file minutes of the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Awareness Commission meeting held on December 21st, 2021. C, receive and file minutes of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners meeting held on January 26, 2022. And D, authorize expenditures for invoices due on or before March 21st, 2022 in the amount of $83,586.74. Are you sure that's all? Wow, okay. Alderman Widener.
I move to approve the agenda as presented by Mayor David Brummel.
Second.
Second by Alderman Davalos. Any questions again? This we'll do a roll call. Yeah.
Alderman Lockett,
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Krokenberg,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
and Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. The consent agenda is approved as presented. We have nothing under regular agenda. No unfinished business listed. We have no new business that I'm aware of. No need for a closed session. Who would like to make the final motion? Alderman Goodman.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Well now, opposed? I guess the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for your attendance and your attention this evening.
This conference is no longer